What's that? No, no, it's not for sale. I'm going to fix it up someday. Yeah, it's an old Plymouth, 67, not a 66. Yeah. No, no, I want to fix it up someday. I know she doesn't look like much, but she means a whole lot to me, and I don't want to get rid of it at all. But I appreciate you stopping and asking. No, 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 I'm not interested in your number. It's okay. I'm not going to change my mind. I'm going to fix it up someday. How many times have we been on the other side of that conversation and we're out and about and we see an old car parked somewhere back in the weeds or behind somebody's barn or even out in front of somebody's barn, and we stop in and hoping maybe we're going to catch them on the right day and we're going to score a really cool project for ourselves or a really cool parts car or something, only to have our dreams and hopes dashed because they're going to fix it up someday. And we know that's never going to happen. And 30 or 40 years down the road, when the thing is completely rotted into the ground and that person's dead and gone, the family is just going to have somebody come and haul it away for scrap. And it'll have just been a complete sad story of what could have been a great project car. Well, you know what? Today, that's our subject here at My Car Shop. It's Talk About It Tuesday, so let's just talk about it. I'm Mike.
This is My Cars Shop.
When you're an old car junkie like I am, and you take on projects that others would deem beyond repair, you do end up doing a lot of door knocking sometimes, chasing down projects and chasing down cars that you have seen somewhere and hoping that somebody can tell you who owns it, or maybe it's in somebody's yard. And there's 9 times out of 10, you're going to get that very scenario is no, no, I'm not going to sell it. It's not for sale. I've learned a little something over the years with my own cars. I usually don't tell them it's not for sale. I just put big stupid money on it so that if they whipped out their checkbook, it'd be worth it. Like we had that happen with the Forsyth Duster. And that is an all numbers matching original blah 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 car. We're not restoring it, but it was sitting outside here in the queue before it came in the shop to start working on it, and somebody stopped by and wanted to know if I wanted to sell it. Now I knew they were looking to pick up a deal for a couple $100, and I told them, yeah, I would consider selling it. Starting price would be about $25,000. And I explained it's a numbers matching, all original, 9,000 mile car, blah, blah, blah. But I laid it on thick, all true. I had no intention of selling the car, but I figured, well, if they give me 25 grand, maybe we would think about it. But no, not really. But we know the frustration of so many of these cars that are sitting around that nobody's ever going to do anything with. They're just going to rot into the ground. And it feels frustrating to those of us who do want to do something with these projects. But let's kind of crack open the mindset of some of these things and let's talk about it. Anybody in this area that knows me and is familiar with what I do, they know better than to even stop and ask if I'm going to sell something. But once in a while, somebody that doesn't know me will stop by and want to buy something, as I just mentioned. But there are other people who have had cars forever. And, they're just sitting there rotting into the ground. And they don't have the resources, they don't have the time, they don't have the money, they don't have the skill, they don't have the place, they don't have the equipment to do what you and I can do with a car. And it feels very frustrating to know that somebody could actually do something with that. But there's more to it than probably meets the eye. It's hard to take away something that somebody has dreamed about all their lives. It's hard to take away something that maybe somebody's dad dreamed about all their lives, and the story becomes, I'm going to fix that up someday. Now, if they were real, if they were realistic, they would know they're never going to do that, and we know that. And if you pushed them hard enough, they would know that too. 95 or more percent of the time, that's the scenario. But for some people, just owning it is enough. I kind of think in some ways that was the story for my grandfather who owned his dad's car, the 1926 Oakland that we have stored over in the other building that you see us work on the channel and drive around all the time. He had so many people knocking on the door in his lifetime wanting to buy that car. And he would never sell it because it was his dad's car. Now, we've learned some things that maybe there was a little bit more to it than that. And maybe he really did feel like it wasn't his and it was his dad's car. I don't know. But there's speculation, let's put it that way, after we've read some diaries and other things. But point is that there's always a reason why somebody doesn't want to part with something. And I think that's important for us to understand. We all enjoy things differently. I think part of it, my grandfather just thoroughly enjoyed the nostalgia of that car. It was the car that he drove when he got married. There's all kinds of history. My grandma has some stories about the car with a little sparkle in her eye and chuckles about the years they were dating. She's gone now too, so I think I can say that without embarrassing her. um, so there's all kinds of things that logically don't make sense, but they do make sense when you look at what people may be feeling about some of these cars that are sitting around. I remember when I bought my 31 Ford, the guy was very particular about who he sold it to. He came to a point in life where he knew health wise and time wise he wasn't going to be able to do anything with the car. And he did talk about having me do the car for him, but he also realized for the point that he was in his life, that probably didn't make a lot of sense. Now, he had owned that car since sometime in the 50s. I remember pictures of it. I have them somewhere, slides from like 1959 when he was in the process of restoring it and painting it. He ended up damaging his lungs with the painting process, I believe, is what happened, and had health issues. And then his wife had some health issues, and he never got back to getting it done. But when I met him in the 90s, we had just purchased our house at that time in another city around here. And money was not in a good position because we just laid out a whole bunch for a new house. But he called me and he said, I'd like you to stop out and I want to talk to you about that Model A. So, of course, I had been kind of wanting the car for a long time, but I was just biding my time. And lo and behold, he said, I think it's a good opportunity that I would like to sell you the car, but I want to be very clear on some conditions. It's okay. I'm willing to work with you on that if you're willing to sell me the car. I don't want you to hot rod it. No intention of hot rodding it. I don't want you to turn around and sell it for big, stupid money. I want you to keep it and enjoy it. And that's exactly what I did. That was my intention anyway. But sometimes if we dig into people's mindsets, we can find out what the reasons are for not wanting to sell something, and we may be able to meet some criteria that they would have that would be conditional for the sale. Now, I will say this, don't be a BSer and say that and then go against everything that you said you were going to do. That goes against the bigger picture of how we can maybe get some people to sell some things that they might not want to right up front.
In other words, don't be a douchebag.
If you give your word about something, keep it. Your word should mean something, and it should be as good as a written contract. That's the way I try to function to the best of my ability, and I wish the rest of the world was that way as well. There may be just for some people, like my grandfather, I think just owning it was enough joy. I know a guy not far from here who has three gorgeous, well, they were gorgeous. They're starting to deteriorate now, last time I saw them. Three gorgeous muscle cars parked in a garage. They haven't seen the light of day in probably 40 years, 30 years, 40 years. And if you talk to him about them, he's perfectly content to just own them. There's something that he enjoys owning, and just owning them. He doesn't need to drive them. He doesn't need to fix them. They're actually nice, but they're there. And there's other emotional baggage and stuff that goes with that. But for him, owning it is the pleasure. So whether it's a beautifully restored car like he has in his garage, three of them, or it's some old rusty piece of junk out back, sometimes that's the thing that the person enjoys the most. They don't need to fix it. They don't need to drive it. They don't need to see it restored. They just like looking out and seeing it and knowing that they have it. I find a lot of hostility sometimes when I stop to talk to people about a car and see if they might be willing to sell it. And it's usually because other people have stopped and asked about it and been rude or inconsiderate, or they just walked across somebody's property and started looking at the car without knocking on the door first and asking permission, without asking questions of the owner. I've been run off of places, not with a gun, but I've definitely been run off of places when I've knocked on the door and said, hey, I was, inquiring about that. Just get out of here.
I'm sick of you guys always stopping by here and bugging me about that car. That blankety blank blah, 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 is not for sale.
Well, fair enough. It's been previous door knockers or non-door knockers that probably have brought that guy or gal to that point of frustration. Another important thing is And I've seen this many times. Yeah, I was interested in selling it. I had 3 people stop by here and say they were going to buy it. We agreed on a price and they never came back. Okay, again, it's important. If you're going to knock on a door and want to buy a car, be right up front and say, this is what I can afford. This is what I have right now. They want more than that. Say, okay, I really was interested, but that's beyond my budget. Don't be a door knocker and agree on a price and then go away because you just don't have the money and you can't do it. So be very conscious that this is somebody else's something that means something to them and you have no idea what it means to them. Try to draw them out. Try to ask questions if they're willing to have a conversation. If you approach it right, it's actually can be quite educational and you can learn some things. And I know there was a couple of cars over the years that I was able to pick up because I got to know the person a little bit. And once they got to know me and what I do, they were more interested in moving things my direction because they knew I wasn't just some guy who was coming out trying to buy something for pennies on the dollar and then flip it for big, stupid money. It wasn't exactly the case here with the Challenger, but kind of in some ways because the guy knows me. He's a friend, the guy I got this from, and he knew he wasn't going to do anything with it, and he knew that I could do something with it. And one of the things I told him was, hey, you're a good friend. You know what? When this car's done, you're free to come and grab the keys and take your wife and drive the thing, have fun with it. I can't drive all these cars, and I trust you. So you can drive it and have fun with it. Things like that are important. If somebody knows your intention and knows that maybe there's going to be some value in it for them in the future, they might be more amenable. Now, like I said, this guy was a good friend and that really wasn't the issue, but that's just something that I wanted to do because he gave me such a good deal on the car. But again, it's about being a person of your word and being a person of integrity, being considerate and remembering this is somebody else's thing. It's not mine. I may have opinions about it, but I should probably keep those to myself. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit more about the I'm going to fix that up someday. Remember that that person has had that car for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. They have probably spent a lot of time dreaming about the day that they get that car fixed up and can take it out and drive it around. And that's an emotional thing. That is not a logical thing. Remember that when you're dealing with so many of these things that have sentimental values to us, it's not about the logic. It's about the emotion. So that's my thoughts today. Drop your thoughts down there in the comments. This is probably something I'm going to circle back around to again. I think it's a hot topic. And I think there's things we can do that can really benefit the whole car community as we interact with people who think this way and have these mindsets and the things that we encounter. And we can help maybe bring down some of those flared tempers from people who just really just inflame people because of their attitudes and their arrogance and their entitlements and so forth, that they go barging into somebody else's place. Oh, that car. Yeah, well, that car's a piece of junk, and it's not. I'll give you $200 for it because blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, I've been on the receiving end of that. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back.
No more, no more, no more.
That's going to do it for this one. We'll catch you on the next one, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And the other most important thing around here, don't forget. Rah!